How's it going, guys? It's been a minute and I am stoked to be sitting here with you right now. Got a bunch of awesome videos lined up and planned. Some really cool stuff. Obviously, it's holiday time, so we've got some great sales and whatever that we'll be telling you guys about a little bit later on with some different videos. But I thought it would be really fun to sit down and just kind of have a fun, informal chat just here in the shop and kind of get you guys caught up on where I've been and what I've been doing. And not because I'm a particularly interesting person, but because I have had a pretty interesting set of experiences over the last 6 to 8 months since you last saw me. I've been basically on the road, living on the road, doing crazy treasure hunt thing with Worksharp sharpeners. So when me and Jamie back in February had to put a pin in the channel, obviously we were super bummed about it, and I had to find work. I had to find what I was going to do for work. And so for a little while, I ended up running a huge 5-axis CNC machine, and I was making carbon fiber wing bodies for F-35s and making some space parts. And I don't know, it was just kind of a cool experience for a little while. It wasn't great for some family stuff that was going on at the time, but it was a really cool experience. And right around that same time, Worksharp sharpeners reached out to me, and they're like, "Hey, you know the Quest?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know the Quest." And they're like, "So this year, instead of sending out boxes to a bunch of different people all over the United States to create treasure hunts in different states, we want to have one guy take all the boxes and hide them all." And they're like, "Do you want to be that guy?" And I was like, "Yeah, sign me up." So it was, I had to hide 35 boxes, so 35 different hikes in 35 different states. And I had to do it all in about 6 months, which is a really tight frame line if you start thinking about how that all works out. And there were a couple of live events in there as well that were ping-ponging me across the country. So that's what I did. They gave me a paycheck, they gave me a gas card, and they gave me a truck, and they said, "Go." So it was really cool to have that type of freedom just to pick where I wanted to go and do what I wanted to do and try to make things that I thought would be really cool. So if you guys want to check that project out, you can check out Worksharp in the Wild on Instagram, and a lot of the Quest stuff is right there. We're still finishing up a couple states, so I think by the time this video drops, there'll be like 4, maybe 5 states left. So check out Worksharp in the Wild if you want to go on a treasure hunt, because maybe we haven't done your state yet. So in doing this, I had a couple goals. One goal was get back into better shape, because I had gotten a little soft just with stress and some other things I was dealing with health-wise. And so I'd gotten a little soft. So I was like, this is a great opportunity to try to kind of get back into shape. And the other thing that I really wanted to do was to try to make each one of these treasure boxes, each one of these quests in these different states, unique and interesting. For example, in California, I took people to Southern California, and I took them to the moon. We took them to a really remote desert, desolate. I mean, there's nothing alive out there. For Arizona, I took people basically as tropical as you can get in Arizona. And I just tried to create these moments and these places that would lead stories, right? Because I was getting stories and I was having a great time. So while I was traveling around, I was in a Toyota Tacoma that was provided by some guys over at Oregon Truck and Auto Authority they're up in Oregon, very close to where Worksharp is. And it was a great little rig. Had a rooftop tent, had a camper, or had an enclosed back to it, had a bunch of gear and gadget all over it, bunch of lights. Like, it was a cool rig. Funny enough, while I was on the road, I think I only slept in the rooftop tent maybe 3 times total, maybe 5, I don't know. Very, very few times. In the 6 months that I was on the road, so it was about 180 days. 180 days on the road, I think I slept in a bed 15 times, and I slept in the camper or the rooftop tent 3 times, and the rest of the time I legitimately just slept in the front seat of the taco. I don't recommend it, but I was moving and grooving, and that's just literally the only place that made sense. Because a lot of time I was just pulling over on the side of the road to crash, to go to sleep, or I was just pulling into a truck stop or some random like neighborhood, even just like incognito camping, and popping that pop-up tent. It shows everybody where you're at. It's a little bit of work, it's a little bit of time, it's too comfortable, and it was too dark. So it just made too much of a comfortable situation when maybe I was only going to get 2-3 hours of sleep and then have to drive a few more 100 miles and pop out a 10-15 mile hike. So the sleeping situation was really interesting, but really fun. And it did take me a minute to even just get my food system down, because I didn't want to eat on the road the whole time because it's crazy expensive. So even just getting the food situation was like a whole struggle. So if you guys ever want a video on best adventure rigs or how to set up adventure rigs, let me know. Because not only did I have a lot of experience before, but now I just lived it for like 6 months straight. So from from Arizona, California, worked my way through New Mexico, Texas. I went to the highest mountain in Texas, which was really cool. Really, that was a lot of fun. I met up with a couple of my knife making buddies in Texas, Doughboy Blades and my buddy Knives Made by Nick, my buddy Nick over at Knives Made by Nick, and that was awesome. It was great to see those guys, and I was able to connect with a few makers along the way and kind of make the quest boxes a little more interesting. So that was really fun, make them a little more spicy, have a little extra in them. I only got lost once, at least. Yeah, I only got lost once, and that was before Blade Show East in Georgia. It was sometime late May in Alabama. I got caught in a torrential downpour, and my glasses were fogging up, covered in rain, and the path that I was on turned into a stream, and that stream went downhill following like kind of a real stream bed, and I didn't know I needed to stay left because I had, almost no visibility. It was just like, if you live in the South or you live somewhere where it rains, you know what I'm talking about. I'm from the desert. It was really hard because I'm not even used to rain. So I got lost, and all I did was and the sun's going down. So I just sat down right where I was and got rained on for about an hour or two. And then once the rain let up just enough that I could have a little bit better visibility, tracked my way back up, found where I went wrong, and I did actually make it out just fine. But it's been a while since I'd been lost, so it was a good adventure. And then that led me to Blade Show in Georgia. And at Blade Show in Georgia, you may or may not have heard, I launched my first ever knife design. So this is the Civivi Yonder. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. If you're not, I'm really proud of it. It's got 14C 28N blade. It's got micarta handles. It also comes in a wood handle and a G10 handle. And yeah. This is just a knife that I hadn't seen anywhere really for a long time. It's got a lot of design features from a lot of different knives. As you guys know, that's how the knife design process works. I sat down with Ben over at NAFS, and we talked a little bit about the design process. But yeah, I'm really, really proud of how this thing turned out. And at Blade Show, Georgia, it won Best Buy of the Year, which was a huge deal for my first ever knife design. And yeah, comes in at like $58 for the micarta and the G10 versions. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good buy. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but if you want to check it out, I got a link down in the description. So while I was at Blade Show in Georgia, I also ran into a lot of you guys in the wild, and I ran into a lot of, just at different knife companies and stuff like that. And since we put a pin in the channel back in February, we've had a lot of you guys reach out. We've had a lot of guys want to see us, make videos again, and we've had a lot of companies reach out and be like, dude, how do we get involved? And because at the end of the day, as you guys know, channel runs on sponsorship, right? Like, we've got to have sponsors so that we can get gear, so we can make content, so we can do the thing. And so one of the people that was like just really persistent, like, dude, how do we make this happen, was CRKT Knives. And as you guys know, I love CRKT Knives. I think that they make some incredible stuff, and they make some of my favorite knives. Speaking of favorite knives and favorite knife makers, Lucas Burnley, as you guys know, I love the squid. I think it's absolutely awesome knife. This right here, though, is the Ibis. And this is a design that Burnley's done with CRKT, and they had, just like the standard, like CRKT budget version. I think it's 14C 28N. You get a G10 front and a frame lock, and it's like $78. It's honestly, it's a really good deal. But this one here is S35VN and full titanium construction frame lock, and this one goes for like $200, and this is like new. This just recently released from CRKT, so really cool knife from one of my favorite knife makers. Burnley actually just did a really cool video of him modifying this thing in his shop, so putting a little bit of the extra Burnley zhuzh on it, so I'll put a link to that down in the description as well. But anyways, thank you, CRKT, for being a sponsor of the channel again, and thank you for sending me some knives to check out. We've got a lot of awesome knives from CRKT that I'll definitely be showing off, especially with some of the holiday stuff that's coming up. So from Blade Show in Georgia, I ended up hooking up with Ricky and Taylor over at Best MEDC, and we went on some adventures through the South together. We went through North Carolina, we went through Tennessee, and ended up at Smoky Mountain Knife Works. And I had never been to Smoky Mountain Knife Works, and it was so cool. It was so cool. If you are a knife guy and you ever get the chance, 100% check out Smoky Mountain Knife Works. They're not sponsoring anything. It was a really cool experience. And so we went there, had a great time. TC just showed us around, had a blast. We went to one of his shows. I don't know if you guys know, but the guy who does a lot of the face work for Smoky Mountain Knife Works, he also is like an incredible musician and performer. And so actually we got to go to one of his shows, which was really cool. And yeah, just had a great time with those guys. Hit some quest boxes along the way while we were doing all of this. And while we were there, we did a meet and greet at Smoky Mountain Knife Works. And I got to meet a few of you in person, which is always my favorite thing to do. And so while we were doing that, there was a couple guys that showed up, and they had a gift from their buddy who's a knife maker. And it's this kitchen knife right here. And this thing is awesome. So this is from a brand called Primo, and he just makes kitchen knives. He makes like really cool, just like well thought out, well designed kitchen knives. I think he's got a background in carpentry and maybe even a background in like sculpture or something like that. And yeah, so this, just the looks of it alone, I was like, this is an absolutely incredible knife. And then I started using it on the road because I was doing a ton of food prep because I was prepping all of my meals. And this thing is scary sharp. I actually had a helper with me out in Washington, and she was cutting up some fruit, looked up, and I literally like cut the end of her thumb off. She was okay. We glued everything up, stitched it all up, or glued it all up, bandaged it all up, and it was fine because it was a really clean cut because of how sharp the knife was. But she didn't listen to my warning, and she got sliced. But anyways, so this knife from Primo, absolutely stellar, just amazing. It's got kind of like a weird sheath. I haven't had a chance to talk to him. I need to reach out and talk to him. But yeah, it's kind of this weird like pink shiny leather sheath, but you got the jade, you've got the brass, and then obviously you've got the Damascus, and this is all handmade stuff. So really cool knife that I was able to get while I was down there at Smoky Mountain Knife Works, and it has been so handy. I really like Knife Guy kitchen knives. And, this isn't one that was made by, like, he just makes kitchen knives, but it's definitely a Knife Guy's kitchen knife. And if you're in the need for a kitchen knife, definitely check out Primo. Super cool stuff. It's spelled really weird. So yeah, I got a link down in the description. You can go check out his website, figure it all out. But yeah, so from there, I rocked up to the Northeast, and up there, I mean, I hit everything. I mean, Maine, Rhode Island, New York, Pennsylvania, Vermont, you name it, I went there. And it was really cool because I got to go to Maine. And for me, Maine has always been a mythical land because when I was just a young, poor kid growing up in the ghetto of Las Vegas, I grew up like 2 blocks from the Strip. Like in middle school, we didn't have snow days because obviously Las Vegas, we had gang shooting days. And it's not like to make light of that, it's just a fact. Like we would get calls, or my mom would get a call, that we weren't going to school that day, or the bus just wouldn't show up because there'd been a gang shooting at my school the previous night. So that's the neighborhood I grew up in. And so in the summer times, I'd go out and I'd go work the ranches, and I'd go work the freight line, and I'd go work the farms with my grandpas. But still, I mean, it was all Nevada, right? Like there's not really trees, there's not really seasons, there's not really a lot of biodiversity, you might say. So growing up, I would order by myself, like my mom and dad didn't order them. I would order the free LL Bean catalogs. I think I started doing this when I was 10, because all you had to do was just call a 1-800 number and give them an address. And I would order the LL Bean catalogs, they'd send them to the house, and then I would just sit down and I would go through those catalogs until they fell apart, looking at like all the leaves and the green and the mountains and the granite, like all these features I'd never seen in real life. And I would just create all these scenarios. And of course, right, like I would also, and I do this with Cabela's catalog as well. I'd go through and like pick out gear and be like, okay, I'll get this backpack and I'll get this. It's probably where my gear obsession started. I'm going to blame it on LL Bean and Cabela's. But so that was my escape. Like that was something that I did as a kid. Hours and hours as a kid, escaping into LL Bean catalogs. I've never owned anything from LL Bean, and I've never been to Maine. So I was able to go to Maine, and I shared this over at the NAFs, over on the NAFs at night that I did with Ben. But driving into Maine, I was driving into Maine, and the sun's setting, and border crossings, right? Like from one state to the next, you're on the same highway, basically the same. It's not like when you go, like the colors immediately change or anything. But I got the "Welcome to Maine" sign as I was driving into Maine, and it was the sun was setting. And I'll be 100% honest, like I got a little teary-eyed. Like I didn't realize how important that trip was to me, or how important going to Maine and experiencing Maine was to me until I was there. And it was a big deal. So I was able to do like a 15-mile forest and coastal hike because I only had a day. I only had one day to do Maine. And so I was able to find a hike that was just amazing, where I was able to get coastal Maine. I was able to get some forest in Maine. I was able to see some of the small towns. And I was like way up north. I think I was in the farthest east point of the United States. I'm 99% sure I saw a sign that said that. I ended up at the farthest west point in the United States as well, or highway points in the United States as well when I ended up in Alaska, but we'll get to that in a minute. So anyways, I'm in Maine. I do the hike. I have a great time. I just like kind of blown away. I take extra time on the hike, just really soak it in, you know. And then I'm like, man, I really want to go to LL Bean. And, but I'm hours away from LL Bean when I get off the hike. I get out of the hike, it's like, I don't know, 5 p.m., 6 p.m. I don't know, it's late, right? It's later. And so I'm like, man, I really want to go to LL Bean. So I look it up and I'm like, well, maybe I can stay the night in Maine and hit LL Bean in the morning when they open at 10 a.m. and then go to the next day. I think I was going to Vermont next. And so I Googled it just to find out where they were at. And it turns out that the LL Bean headquarters in Maine is open 24 hours. It's open 24 hours a day. I think 365. They may be closed for Christmas. I'm not sure. But anyways, it's open 24 hours a day. So in classic Zach road trip fashion, I was able to go to LL Bean. I think I ended up getting there at like 1 a.m. or something like that. It was amazing. I think I was like the only person there shopping. There might have been like 1 or 2 other people. And I just wandered around LL Bean headquarters for, I don't know, probably an hour or two. There was a bunch of new stuff that I've never seen before. And just the vibe, the wood, the carved ducks, like all the LL Bean stuff. If you've ever looked at an LL Bean catalog, it was really cool. It was really cool for me. And I do officially own one LL Bean thing, and it's a book about the founding of LL Bean and kind of the history behind it. And it's actually really cool. If you ever get the chance, pick the book up. It's super rad. But yeah, check that book out. I'll put a link in the description to that too. Why not? And so yeah, it was a really cool experience being able to go to LL Bean. And so I get done wandering around LL Bean. It's early in the morning. It's like 2, 1, 2, 3. I don't know. It's early in the morning, and it's a huge parking lot. And I'm in this taco, and I'm like, man, I wonder if I could get away. And I was exhausted. I was like, I wonder if I can get away with just sleeping in the parking lot of the LL Bean again, just in the front seat of the taco. And sure enough, man, I went to sleep. I think I got 4 hours, a solid 4 hours, and nobody bothered me. Sun came up. And I pulled out of Maine and went along my merry way. So it was a really good time. And like I said, I hit Rhode Island. With Rhode Island's the smallest state geographically in the United States. So I actually went around the entire state of Rhode Island and kind of put together a bunch of clues that people were able to check out. So I was able to see tons of awesome stuff in Rhode Island. Rhode Island is one of the oldest states/colonies, and it also has some of the oldest continually operating libraries in the United States. So I was able to go see some old, I put a clue there. I was able to go see an old library, which was really neat. And then I started blowing back west, floated a river in Ohio, went and saw my buddy over at Two Feathers Knives, and he threw in some knives as well for the Pennsylvania box, which hasn't launched yet. So if you're in Pennsylvania, box coming soon. And so the real fun thing about all of that, well, I guess the real hard thing about all of that is that I also ended up hitting basically every heat wave the country experienced. I dodged some tornadoes and hailstorms in Texas, but then in the south, in the east, and then when I came back to the Midwest later, I ended up hitting every single heat bubble. And most of them I was able to just sleep in the front of the truck and just tough it out. But the Midwest broke me, and I did do a night or two in a hotel room in the Midwest later on. I think it was in August or July that I ended up, I just had to. There was too many mosquitoes, it was too hot, it was too humid. I pansied out basically. But when I was at Smoky Mountain Knife Works, I forgot to tell you guys, when I was there, they have a brand called the Marbles brand. And the Marbles brand is just a budget brand, Chinese sourced, traditional patterns that they pull out of old catalogs and stuff like that, because they've got a ton of history over at Smoky Mountain Knife Works. And I was able to get my first elephant's toe knife, which was really, really neat. This one's actually not a Marbles. This one's a Rough Rider. But yeah, I was able to get elephant's toe, elephant's foot. I always forget the name of the patterns on traditionals. I apologize for that. But I don't know. They're just like inexpensive, good little, slip joints. They've got a half stop. They've got a bit of walk and talk. And I really dig them. So I was able to get some of these, which was really cool. It's no secret, I'm not a big guy about chasing drops. It's just not my thing. I don't like to do it. And so I would love to get like an American-made one of these patterns, but just haven't got around to it. So while I was at Smoky Mountain, it was convenient, and I was able to add, at least aesthetically, able to add these to the collection. And they've been fun to carry. I just pull them out, and they're fun talking pieces. On the note of that as well, though, the Marbles brand, there was this thing that caught my eye, and this was I had to have. I just had to have this thing, and like all of these, I think they were like, I don't know, 20 to 40, 50 bucks. Like, they're very inexpensive. But anyways, so this one is awesome because, yes, that's right, that bolster just folded up and out, and then this folds in and acts as a lock. Now, it's not like, fully locked. It's not the best lock in the universe, but once you're holding that, that's not going to close on you, which is really cool. And I don't know, just kind of a fun, unique design that honestly I'd never seen before. So that's a Marbles knife that I was able to pick up while I was over there at Smoky Mountain Knife Works. So I don't know, just some kind of cool, inexpensive knives. I'm a big inexpensive knife guy. While I was blowing across the country, my little brother ended up over in Montana, and me and him have a thing when we see a cool gas station knife, we'll buy it for each other. So he bought this for me in Montana. I can't remember the name of the bar, but there's a really famous bar. It's like called like the $1,000,000 Silver Dollar Saloon. I don't know, something like that. Anyways, and they've got a huge selection in the knife case of just like cheap knives. So he picked me up this really gnarly stiletto from that. I think it was like 30 bucks. So yeah, that's just something me and my brother do, and you can see it's actually pretty good for what it is, to be 100% honest. But yeah, honestly, a lot of gas station knives anymore just suck, and they're super expensive. But something like that's a huge find. And it wasn't a gas station, but still, gas station knife for sure. But yeah, as I was blowing back across the country, I ended up, anytime that I'm going across the country and I get the chance to go through Wyoming, I stop in Casper, Wyoming. And the reason is that in Casper, Wyoming, there is a little restaurant called Johnny J's. And they make, and let me know in the comments, but they make what I think is the best apple pie in the country. And I know that's a big statement. I get that that's a big statement, but here's the thing. This is why. When I was about 18 or 19, I realized I had never tried any other types of pie, fruit pies, except for apple pie. I've had peach cobbler. I've had, like chocolate satin pie. We call it Satan pie in our family because it's so sinful. Yeah, like I've had other types of pies, but I realized when I was an adult, like of adult age, I had no memory of ever trying any other fruit pie but an apple pie. And so I was like, dude, like I'm kind of in this unique position. So I was like, cool, I'm never going to have anything but apple pie. And I never have. That was 20 years ago. I've never had anything other than apple pie. And I have been on this quest my whole life, ping-ponging around the country, going to every little dive and diner that's convenient, that I find. And my friends and my family all know this too, so I'll get suggestions of where to find the best apple pie. But I was in Casper, Wyoming a handful of years ago and ended up in Johnny J's. And I just was like, oh, they got pie. This seems like the right type of place. So I ordered the pie. Best pie ever. And I later learned that the pie recipe came from this woman. I think she passed away when she was 95. And up until like the week she passed away, from what I learned this from a local that lives there in Casper, Wyoming. Up until like a week from when she passed away, she was going in and making pies once a week. She'd come in like every Tuesday or Wednesday and just make a big batch of pies. So this old recipe, and that explains why it's so good. And the gal who ended up buying Johnny J's used to be a server there, and she was the one that took over the pie recipe stuff. So it's kind of this whole thing. Anyways, so I had to stop in Casper, Wyoming, and obviously I had to get a pie. So I got a slice of pie and ice cream while I was there, and then I got a box or two to put in my ice cooler because I knew that I was going to be going into Oregon, and I was going to be there for a few days, and I was like, well, dude, I'm going to have pie for breakfast, lunch, and dinner because it's my favorite pie. Now, like I said, if you think you have a better pie, let me know when and where it is, and whenever I'm going through that, I promise you, if it's convenient, I will stop in. If I have the time, I will stop in and I will try it, but it better be darn good because this is the best. And I made this claim on Instagram over on the Work Sharp in the Wild channel, and I had a guy reach out. Rourke is his name. He's based out of Boise, Idaho. We've become buds since this. And he reached out and he's like, dude, I'm the same. I only like apple pies, and he's like, I make my own, and he's like, but I think mine's probably better. And I'm like, dude, that's a big claim. So I was going from Wyoming to Oregon. I had to go through Boise. And I was like, dude, I'm going through Boise. I'm going to be through Boise like tomorrow. So I was like, give me your address. I'll stop in. I'm going to give you a piece of this pie, but you got to give me a taste review, right? And he's like, he's like, bet, we're going to do it. That's fine. So I ended up showing up while he was at work, but his partner was there at the house. So she was there. I was able to hand the knife off to her. And then on the front porch there, he also had left me a little like care package. So if I remember right, it was a knife and a bottle of mead and a little container to put his apple pie in. I'm pretty sure that was everything. So, and it was homemade mead. It was mead he had made, which was so cool. And I don't drink, but it was just such a great gesture, and I ended up sharing it with the guys work sharp. So yeah, it was a good deal. But and then he left me a knife, it was a knife I've never seen before. This is Damned Designs. And he left this out front. And he has a philosophy. He's like, yeah, no, like I kind of buy knives, and every once in a while it feels like a knife needs a new home, or a knife needs to go to somebody else. And so he's kind of has like a section of his knife collection set aside for people to give people knives, which I think is really cool. I do the same. I don't have like a section of them, but like I've got a lot of knives because I do this for work and I love doing it. And so I will go through the knife collection when I know somebody needs a knife, and I'll try to pick something for him. So he left this for me, which was so dang cool, and a bottle of mead. So I left him a slice of pie, and then he tried the pie, and he said,
"That was pretty damn good pie." But the true test is always the outside. This pie is freaking great. 10 out of 10.
And he's like, yeah, no, if I get the chance, I want to make you a pie next time you come through Boise. And I was like, dude, that'd be great. So we kind of set it up like, yeah, when I come through Boise, we'll make it happen. All right, so I'm actually not going to make you wait because it makes more sense to tell this part of the story now. So I did end up back in Boise, and I ended up doing a collaboration with my buddy TJ Schwartz over at Schwartz Knives. And this is the LT5, the Lost Trail 5. It's got A2 tool steel. It's got a Richlite handle, and Richlite is kind of like a micarta is the way to think about it. And the really cool thing about this, with a lot of TJ's designs, is he has a custom builder on his website. So when you go on, you can actually choose your Kydex color and material, or your Kydex color. You can choose some of your other options on your sheath, and then you can also choose options around your knife. And I didn't collaborate with him on this knife. I think actually Gideon Tactical did some collaboration with him on this. But we collaborated on a Quest box, and we hit a box in Boise. But while I was there, I didn't have time to go and have pie with work, so I didn't even reach out to him. I didn't even let him know. But later on in Salt Lake, beginning of October, I believe, was Blade Show West. And so I was at Blade Show West. I was at the Weiss Vivi booth selling Yonders, right? Like talking to people about Yonders and sharing my design experience and signing knives with engravers. It was a lot of fun. And so Rourke actually came down from Boise. I think he had some family stuff in the area, so it wasn't just for this. But still, he came down from Boise, and he had a pie in his hand. And I wasn't too surprised to see the pie. Was stoked. But I wasn't too surprised to see the pie because I was like, oh, dude, yeah, it makes sense. If you're going to come, you got to bring some pie. And then he takes the tinfoil off the pie, and he had put the word Yonder into the top of the pie crust, and then he'd also put a Yonder-shaped piece of pie crust in the top of the pie. It was just absolutely amazing. Just the best guy ever. And I said this over on Work Sharp in the Wild when I was over there checking stuff out with him and passing off pies and everything. Just the best people in the knife and EDC world. Like everybody, all of you guys, everybody I've ever met is just the best. And I hope that I can add to that. I hope that I can be counted at least among some of the good ones. So Rourke, thank you. It was absolutely amazing experience. And if you guys are wondering, yes, the pie was absolutely amazing. There's definitely a difference between a homemade pie and then a pie that you can buy, right? Right, it goes from Hostess apple pies, right, which I used to be okay, but they're horrible now. And then you got your grocery store pies. Those are hit or miss. Most of the grocery stores in Utah, none of the pies that come out of the bakeries here are good. But a Marie Callender, you can get the Marie Callender oven pies. Those can be okay, But a homemade pie is something special. It's something extra, and Rourke's just knocked it out of the park. So the pie in Casper may not be better than Grandma's pie, right? And I would say the pie in Casper and Rourke's pie were equal. That's how good the pie in Casper is. But yeah, it was just awesome. And like I said, that was this Damn Design was the only other knife that I carried the entire time I was on the road, other than my Yonder. So I took this Yonder out of my pocket, and I carried the dam design. A little bit of a size difference there, of course, but both cool knives. And I carried that dam design. I think I carried it for like 2 or 3 days, and then obviously I had to go back to carrying the Yonder because I was also doing R&D on the Yonder while I was out there because it was a unique experience to put that knife through so many environments and everything. Casper, Wyoming's great pie. Rourke's a great dude, and people in the knife community rock. That's the full summation of that story. So, but after blowing across from Boise, I spent some time in the Pacific Northwest. I had my family come up. We spent some time together up there. Did some coastal stuff. Went to Pal's Book in Portland, Oregon. If you haven't been to Pal's Book, you get the opportunity. Same type of situation. Definitely go. When I try to only go about once a year, because whenever I go, I end up spending about $500 on books, which doesn't go it doesn't go as far as it used to. But Pal's it's called the City of Books, and it's literally a square city block in downtown Portland, Oregon, and it's like 3 or 4 stories, and it's amazing. It's just heaven. If you like books, you got to go to Pal's. So I went to Pal's, which was pretty cool, and then just bopped around the country and just planting more quest boxes. Had a really cool experience in Oklahoma. I ended up in I can't remember the name of the range now, but I ended up in Oklahoma doing a quest box, and I ended up in like this nature preserve area, and it was really neat because I think I did like 5-6 miles. It was kind of like this loop out into this open plains area. There was a couple trees and stuff like that, but while I was out there, just in that 5 to 6 miles, I saw more animals than I have ever seen in my entire life in one area. And it's a nature preserve, so it makes sense. But I saw deer, I saw antelope, I saw elk like bathing in a lake. I mean, like National Geographic stuff. I saw bison. I'm pretty sure they were bison, not buffalo. I always forget the difference. And even longhorn cows. I saw a rattlesnake. And, this assortment of birds. I'm not a bird guy, so I don't know all the names. But you get what I'm saying. It was so cool. And again, I was trying to go and do things and put these boxes in places that would be unique or interesting for people that lived in those states. Because, when you live in a state, you kind of know what your state has to offer. Even if you're not an outdoors person, you're driving on highways and you're going on roads and you kind of have an idea, right? And I know that Oklahoma box, the people that found that one were really stoked because if I remember right, it was a father and son that went out and found it. But they said it was a fun, unique experience for like the area they live in. So Oklahoma was really cool. Honestly, I don't think that there was one that wasn't like cool. South Dakota was a little rough. The South Dakota box hasn't dropped yet. But the South Dakota box you can basically drive to. I had done, if I remember correctly, I had done Oklahoma and Kansas the same day, and then Wyoming the next day, and then South Dakota the next day. So I was exhausted. You can imagine the amount of driving and hiking and everything. And by the time I got to South Dakota, I was just out of fuel. Like just my brain wouldn't work, my body wouldn't work. And so the South Dakota box, man, that one might be a little bit. It'll be cool, but that one might be a little bit boring. But other than that, I think I did a pretty good job. So this is kind of winding up at the end of the summer. I've hit. I think I said at the beginning of this, I hit all 50 states. I drove over 35,000 miles in 6 months. I did Hawaii earlier on when we did the Ken Onion documentary with Worksharp at the beginning of the year. So I did 49 states in 6 months. And I realized I had done 49 states up to this point. And I had like 3 or 4 days before I went and checked in with Worksharp, kind of just like ended the whole project, right? Like just passed off some data to them, passed off some media assets, that type of stuff. And I had like 3 or 4 days. And I was like, well, okay, like I'm up here. It doesn't make sense to go back down to Utah because it's a 2-day drive back up. So I was like, all right, what should I do? Like I've been running and gunning hard all summer long. So I was like, well, what's going on? And so I get on, I'm kind of searching around or whatever, and I ended up getting on Instagram to do something. I try not to waste any time there. I know I had a purpose. That doesn't mean that I don't get lost, but I had a purpose to get on Instagram. I got on Instagram, I was doing something, and this account popped up that I followed for a long time. They don't ever really post anymore, and the account is called the Man Wolves. And I'm going to share this with you, but you can't judge me because it's a little weird. But I grew up in like kind of the weird art scene, the weird punk art scene in Las Vegas. So I've got a soft spot in my heart. I have a soft spot in my heart just for like weird little like videos and art and projects and things like that. And so the Man Wolves were a group of skaters. I'm pretty sure a lot of them were like pro or semi-pro skaters. that ended up kind of forming like a crew, and they had these like cuts. They had these like these jean vests, you know, so standard punk vests. But on the back, they had like a man wolf, this man wolf face, and then the words man wolf. And they'd go skate around together and everything. And they did a shoe with ES shoes back in the day, a skate shoe. They've been featured in a couple music videos. And there's even a movie. There's a full-length movie called Macho Tail Drop. I think you can watch it for free on YouTube.
What does this have to do with skateboarding, Walter?
Macho Tail Drop.
It's a little weird, but if you like kind of weird stuff, or if you like skateboarding, or even if you just like grew up in the era of extreme sports, like X Games and stuff like that, there's some fun commentary about how athletes are treated and things like that. Anyways, and all of this is orchestrated by a guy named Corey Adams. So he's the guy who kind of, I think that he had a lot of creative direction early on, but he definitely was the guy that like directed a lot of like the music video, he directed the shoe commercial, and he directed the movie. And so I found out that on this account they posted, so it popped up, and they were doing a 15-year kind of like reunion and movie viewing of Macho Tail Drop up in Vancouver, BC. And I was down, you know, Portland area, and I was like, well, shoot, like I can make it to Vancouver. That's no problem. I got my passport on me, right? I think it was like, I don't know, 7-hour drive, no big deal. So I did. I drove the 7 hours up to Vancouver. I went and saw the movie. I spent a little time in Vancouver in the afternoon. Watched the movie with a bunch of other people that on the big screen with a bunch of people that were in the scene and were in the movie, which was really cool. Got to kind of like talk to a couple people, but it was obvious it was like a family reunion, and I didn't want to go bother the guys. You know, like I'd enjoyed their stuff for a long time, but I didn't want to like be like, oh hey, you don't know me and I'm from Utah, but like, how's it going? You know, so I didn't bother them. But there was a raffle that they did, and I didn't get a raffle ticket because I sat down really fast because I wanted the right seat. And they raffled off like a patch, and they raffled off like some other stuff, and then they raffled off like a full Man Wolf vest. And like for me and my buddies, especially at the time that we discovered the Man Wolves, we were like, dude, we should make vests that have Man Wolves on them and like have a crew down here. But we're like, no, we can't do that. We got to be invited by the Man Wolf guys to do it. Like you can't just like make it, you know? And for a little while you could buy Man Wolf patches, and I was just like, yeah, no, you can't buy it. Like that's not punk rock to buy it, right? So they auctioned off the Man Wolf vest, and they actually ended up being like the first person to touch the vest is the guy that gets the vest. And I thought they were joking. The whole audience laughed. The guys next to me were like, call the number. And I thought they were kidding. And you know, Canadians, at least in my experience, Canadians are like very polite. And I feel like they might see us Americans as a little bullish. So I didn't want to be like the loud American, like jumping over people, like running down. Like I wanted to represent us correctly. You know what I mean? And my Canadian friends, correct me. Maybe I'm wrong here. But anyway, so I didn't jump up. I didn't chase it down. And sure enough, some guy runs down the aisle. He gets the vest. So later on, I messaged Corey Adams, and I was like, because we had talked a couple times on Instagram over the years, and I was like, oh, dude, like I came down, I missed it, blah blah blah, and I told him, I was like, dude, yeah, I've driven all the way up from Utah, and they had a launch at a brewery. I don't drink, but the cans were cool. They were Man Wolf cans. So I actually drove from Utah up to Strathcona Brewery in BC. Hung out with those guys, partied with them all night, didn't go to bed, and then drove back to Utah. So like that whole drive back and forth, hung out with those dudes, and didn't sleep the whole time. And I kind of told him these stories, and I can't remember exactly what he said. He said something along the lines of, that's Man Wolf activities. Those are Man Wolf activities. And he's like, dude, I'm going to send you some patches. And so, all of that to say, I got Man Wolf patch. And Ben, if you're watching this, I know you're going to laugh. And Ben's got stories about the Man Wolves and some experiences that he has. But yeah, anyways, so I am super excited about this. That's just a personal thing, but I thought I'd share it with you guys. Kind of a fun thing. Like I said, if you check anything out from the Man Wolves, just take it with a grain of salt. It's a little weird. It's not bad. It's just a little weird. So anyway, so after BC, I drove back down to Portland that night. And again, I had a couple days to kill. And that was when I realized, I was like, dude, I've been to all 49 states this year. Like, when in my life am I ever going to have that opportunity again? And not just been to them. I spent real time in all 49 states, like at least a couple days. Went on hikes in most of them, like did some exploring in the others that I didn't hike in. Like it was, you know, like it was the real deal. And, but except for Alaska. And I was like, well, what's a ticket to Alaska cost, right? And I think the ticket was like $400. I'm like, I don't really have $400. Like I really don't. Like I don't have an extra $400 just laying around. But I was like, dude, I got to. Like, I gotta go. Like, I've done all the other states. I gotta go to Alaska. So I got that night. I bought a ticket from Portland. I woke up in the morning. I got to, that was in the evening. I go and I like slept in a Flying J parking lot or something. It was close to the airport. Maybe it was Barnes & Noble. I slept in a Barnes & Noble parking lot that was close to the airport. Woke up in the morning and drove into the airport. It was like, I think my flight left at 3 in the morning. So left at 3 in the morning, got into Alaska, rented a car, drove 1,200 miles all around from like Anchorage, like that kind of southern tip of Alaska. Drove all around, got to see some really cool stuff. And then flew out about 3 a.m. the next morning. And that was my Alaska experience. And it was cool because I was able to go, I can't remember the name of the town off the top of my head, but I was able to go to, there's a little town there that it's like in a cove. And the only way in and out is through a one-way tunnel that also shares train tracks. So you're actually driving your car on train tracks one way through this, like, I think the tunnel's like 2 miles long or something like that. And that was really cool. And I was there until 10 a.m. at that little town, and the sun still hadn't risen. And that was something that my buddy Talon Syed told me, because he did a big trip in Alaska. He was there for like a week or two. And he said that the big thing with Alaska was the scale of everything. Because, you know, like, he lives in Colorado, so he understands the mountains, right? Like, I've got mountains basically right out my back door that are sitting at 10,000, 11,000 feet. But I'm sitting at 6,000, right? 6,500-ish, right? So the scale of that 10,000-foot mountain, it's impressive, but it's not sea level to 10,000 feet. And that's what you get in Alaska. And it just blew me away. And a lot of people have asked, what was your favorite thing? What was your favorite thing? And, you know, I've got a lot of favorites, as you can see in this video. I've got a lot of favorites, but Alaska was next level. It was by and far the most, like, just breathtaking experience that I've had driving around a state. You know what I mean? And I didn't even really get off road. I didn't do any hiking or anything. I did do a box in Alaska. But yeah, like, it was just next level. And I think the reason that it was next level was because I had experienced the other 49 states, you know, other 48 states of the lower 48 of the United States in a very compressed amount of time. So I had all of this, like, data in my brain, all these fresh images and experiences in my brain from the rest of the country. And when I went to Alaska, I think it just magnified the beauty and the scale of everything in Alaska that much more. And I'm not gonna lie, I was there and I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna go home. Like dead serious. I was like, what does it take to work on a fishing boat here? Like, what do I gotta do? You know, obviously I wanted to finish my contract strong with WorkSharp, but I was like, well, I don't know what I'm doing after that, you know? So I was like, what do I want to do? And luckily, I had some sense knocked into me by one of the locals, because I guess that it was the clearest day. It was a sunny day, nice and clear. It was the clearest day they had since like June. So I just happened to be on Alaska in the perfect day for my first experience ever in Alaska. So I feel really lucky about that. And I probably will end up back in Alaska. I probably will try to go work on a fishing boat at some time, just because I don't know anything about the ocean and I really enjoy being in Alaska. So maybe one of these summers I'll be out there. Maybe we'll do some vlogging from Alaska on fishing boats. Let me know. If you have a fishing boat connect, let me know, because I'm not kidding. I think that learning about a place, I think the best way to learn about a place is to work there, is to do work there. And again, like, I'm not independently wealthy, so like I can't afford just to move wherever I want. So, but I could go do a summer in Alaska if I was making money. That's where I've been, and that's what I've been doing. It has been a huge adventure, like an absolutely huge adventure. And yeah, I mean, WorkSharp says they want me back next year. So if that is the case and everything works out, I think it's going to be different. I think it's going to be considerably different than this last year. But if they want me back next year, and you know, you guys show up and the channel's good and everybody's happy with the channel, then we'll probably do some stories from the road, which I think would be really cool, because there were a lot of stories, even just in this admittedly long video, that I wasn't able to share with you guys. So yeah, I hope you guys dug that. I hope you guys are all doing well. I hope that as the holidays are approaching, that everything's going smooth in your life, or as smooth as it can. And like I said, we've got a lot of great videos coming up. This is just the first one I wanted to kick everything off with. And just like I said, just touch bases with you guys, let you know what I've been doing. And I would love to hear what adventure you guys have been up to. You guys know, I read the comments. The last video we put up, there were like, I think about 1,000 comments. I think I've read every single comment. I've responded to most. So please, when I say that, I mean it. Let me know what you've been up to. Let me know what you're doing. And let me know what you'd love to see, because we've had a lot of people in the industry reach out. We've got some sponsorships lined up. And so we will be able to put out some consistent content here with the channel. And, you know, as you guys hear that, if they've got something you like, support our sponsors. That always helps the channel. Check out the CRKT Ibis. It's a really great design and from a really great company and a really great dude. So make sure to check that out as well. And yeah, I think that's it. And next video coming soon. See you guys soon.